this exhibition, which I call Performing Woman, is a continuation of my master's dissertation, which was to do with the performativity of gender. And this is a concept that was developed by the feminist philosopher Judith Butler. And to some extent, it's also touched on by Stuart Hall. Now, performing gender, the concept is that gender, which is a part of identity, it's not something that's fixed. It's not something that's essential to a person. You're not somebody that you stay all your life. You're becoming all the time. And you're becoming all the time depending on your environment, the place you live, the people you interact with, the kind of politics of the country you're living in, the impact that has on you as a person, etc., etc. You get the idea. Whereby you're always performing differently according to the nuances of the environment, but also depending on where you are. You perform differently if you, for example, with friends around a table, or if you're in a shopping center, or if you're in an art gallery. So that performativity varies, and it's also not necessarily, most people think when you do performance it's a conscious act. It's not. It's something that is, I won't say regulated, but to a large extent, it's unconscious. You do it without necessarily specifically following a preconceived idea. Now, what I did with this particular exhibition, I approached 18 artists, and I selected artists that I regard as, first of all, people who are dealing with gender performativity, not maybe in all their works, but a lot of their works to do with gender performativity. But more importantly, I chose people who are working with social commentary. Now, the social commentary is the aspect that each and every work here addresses in a different way, depending on where the performance of that particular artist. Now, all the artists, in varying degrees, use things that I've either read about or they've experienced. Being in South Africa, obviously, with our political background, it's affected people in different ways, and some of them reflect on it differently in their works. For example, Jaco from Schalkwyk. He grew up in a religious community out in the East Rand. And these are reverent works about his time there and how he reveres the work that particularly the women, well, the men as well, but these particular works are to do with the work that the women actually do. They sacrifice themselves, work long hours, etc., to help each other. And it varies around. Like some of the work like Tanisha, Bhana, for example. But if you know Tanisha's background, how she makes the works, that's where the author voice plays a big role for me. She actually goes to these sites, out in the middle of nowhere, sometimes dangerous, often dangerous places. She often uses sex workers as models. So these are people who bring their own stories into it. So it's another way of showing homage to the poor and downtrodden and the maligned, ignored part of society. As you come in in the beginning, in the front of the gallery, is, for example, Collin Cole's work. So his works are very much to do with all the things that he collected there. Each one's got a little story which he can tell you about. And it had a massive impact on him at the time, and it still has a massive impact on him in terms of reflecting back on it. And obviously now reflecting back on it, you can imagine that and think about, we fought this war where I lost friends and we went through all this hardship. The works, for example, of Karin, Preller, those are nostalgic works. These are works that relate back to the 1960s, 1970s. Those particular works, for example, the series he did, the place where he grew up, Montgomery Park. Looking at nostalgia that a lot of whites still carry with them, around with them in South Africa, compared to what's happened over the last 22 odd years and how the environment has changed. People have different lived realities, and one thing I like about this exhibition, how it ended up, or how it resulted in what is around here, is those various stories that come through that, placing people into certain boxes. And in terms of boxes, that's your performance. And that's performance you're not allowed to deviate from with very limited degrees. Now, the biggest thing I'm trying to get out of this particular exhibition is that people come here and first of all realize that, or hopefully realize, that gender performativity can take a number of different aspects. So that's the one part. And the other part is also the fact that the fluidity in it. It's never something that's static. It's not something that because perhaps you were like a white, staunch Afrikaner racist maybe 20 years ago, that can change. Or the opposite. You could be an angry black activist, and that can also change.